This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi, my name is Leroy, and this is my Jenara Zoo of War Commander deck. So, here's my commander, that's Jenara Zoo of War. I'll start off by telling what she actually does. She costs 3 mana, green, white and blue. She's a 3/3 flyer, and for 1 colorless and 1 white mana you may put a +1/+1 counter on her. So why did I choose Jenara? I really like the band colors because they provide a lot of very good cards. And the reason I chose Jenara is that she is really powerful on her own, but this deck can function perfectly fine without her in case she gets stolen or tucked into the library. The way I use her, it's actually different things. Like I can use her early on to beat people up a little bit, to put on early pressure. And late game she can also hit really hard when you've got a lot of mana to invest into her, or when she's carrying equipment. And sometimes I even use her to sacrifice her as part of effect, for example with Birthing Pot or Natural Order, but I'll come to that later. So deck is right here. I'll start off by going over the artifacts. The first artifacts are really stable. It's Soul Ring. It's in pretty much every EDH deck, simply because it's so good. Then next card is Sensei's Divining Top. Unfortunately, I didn't get an English one. For the people that don't know what it does, it says for 1 mana you may look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. And the second ability lets you draw a card from the top of your library, and then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of your library. This makes it really hard for other people to get rid of it, because if they want to destroy it, you can just respond to that by drawing a card and putting it back on top. So it's almost impossible to get rid of it, except with a split second card like Crows and Grip. The next artifact is Oblivion Stone. It's just a mass destruction effect, and the nice thing is that it costs 3 mana, and it is a permanent, so it works really well with Sun Titan, and also works with Academy Ruins, but I'll come to that later as well. The next artifact is Tormod's Crypt. It's my only source of graveyard removal. The reason I didn't go with Relic of Progenitus is because the relic also exiles my own graveyard, and this deck makes use of its own graveyard as well. So instead I use Tormod's Crypt because it targets. The next are some equipments. We've got Sword of Feast and Famine. The discard ability of the sword is nice, but it's not the reason I play it. The reason I play it is because of the untap ability, because, well, if you have Jenara in play, you can just dump all the mana into her, attack, and then untap all your mana. And it also has relevant protection from black and green. The next is Sword of Fire and Ice. The card draw on this is really nice. It lets you draw a card, and being able to ping a creature is also really nice for 2 damage. You can get rid of some annoying utility creatures, but the main reason I use this sword is for the card draw. Up next is Skull Clamp. I wouldn't go as far as saying that Skull Clamp is probably the best card in this deck, because the card draw is just absolutely insane. I've even run some creatures just to use Skull Clamp better. Up next is Birthing Pot. It's also a really powerful artifact. This deck is based on an Enters the Battlefield theme, and Birthing Pot is a nice way to take that to the next level. Up next we have Crystal Shard. Like I said, this deck is based on an Enters the Battlefield theme, and what better way to abuse that with Crystal Shard. Now we go to the creatures. We've got some ramp creatures. The first one is Solemn Simulacrum. Just puts a land in play, and when he dies he draws a card, and that works really nice with Birthing Pot. You can drop the Solemn Simulacrum, get the land, and then later you can just sacrifice it to Birthing Pot, and then you draw a card and you get to search a library for a creature. Next we have Wood Elves. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that most of my ramp, actually all my ramp, is in the form of creatures. And the reason for that is Skull Clamp. You see most of these creatures have a toughness of 1, so they come in the battlefield, they get you the land, and then you can just use them with Skull Clamp or Birthing Pot if you want. We've got Farhaven Elf. And then we've got Sakura-Tribe Elder. Unfortunately this card doesn't work with Skull Clamp, because if you want to get the land, you have to sacrifice the Sakura-Tribe Elder, and you can't do that if he's dying to Skull Clamp. But it's still a really nice card, ramp for 2 mana. And then we've got Oracle of Mul Daya. For the people that don't know what he says you may play an additional land each turn, and you also play with the top of your library revealed, and if the top of your library is a land, then you may play that land. This is indirectly also a form of card advantage, because you'll be filtering your draws. Instead of drawing the lands, you'll be putting them into play from the top of your library most of the time. This also works really nice with shuffle effects, because if there's no land on top of your library, you can just use a tutor or a fetch land to shuffle your library, and then there's a chance that after you shuffle your library there will be a land on the top. Next we go through some of the targeted removal. We've got Acidic Slime, lets you destroy an artifact, enchantment or land when it comes into play. And it also has Death Touch, so it also keeps some big scary guys away from you. Next we have Harmonic Sliver. He lets you destroy an artifact or enchantment when he comes into play. One thing about the Sliver is, like, if you copy him using Phantasmal Image, for example, or another clone, you actually get to destroy 2 artifacts or enchantments, or a combination of both, because when the clone comes into play, he'll have this ability, but this Sliver will give the clone that ability as well, so he basically has this ability twice, so you get to destroy 2 things. And obviously if you play another clone, you get to destroy 3. Next is Duplicant. It's really nice because it's an artifact. You can recur him with Academy Ruins. And also he works really nice with Birthing Pot, because you can just sacrifice him for something big like Elish Norn or Sylvan Primordial or anything else that has a converted mana cost of 7. And also it's colorless, so if something has a sword equipped, then that's like not relevant at all, because Duplicant is colorless. Next we have some creatures that draw you a card or more cards. We've got Raven Familiar. When he comes into play, you may look at the top 3 cards of your library and put one of those cards into your hand and the other 2 on the bottom of your library. And he also has Echo, so in your next upkeep you're gonna have to pay 3 mana again, but usually you don't do that. A nice play would be play Raven Familiar, then equip him with a Skull Clamp and then just wait and draw the 2 cards. Oh, and he also has flying, so he can also block for a turn. Then we've got Coiling Oracle. It's a really nice card. Basically lets you draw a card, and if it's a land, you get to put it into play. And this obviously doesn't count for your land drop for the turn. So it's a ramp or it's a card draw. And as you can see, he'll die to Skull Clamp as well. Next we've got Elvish Visionary, very straightforward, play him and draw a card and he dies to Skull Clamp. And then we've got Mul Drifter. I usually don't use him with Skull Clamp, he's just really nice. It's 3 mana, draw 2 cards, can't go wrong with that. And if you like further in the game you need some blockers, or you really want to sacrifice him to Birthing Pot for example, you'll just pay the 5 mana. And then you've got a 2/2 flyer. Next we go through some of the creature tutors. We've got Trinket Mage. Most of the time Trinket Mage gets Skull Clamp, sometimes it gets Soul Ring, and if I really need a targeted graveyard removal it'll get Tormod's Crypt. Next we've got Stoneforge Mystic. It'll get any of the 3 equipments that we have. Usually it gets one of the 2 swords, but getting Skull Clamp isn't an exception as well. Then we've got Fierce Empath. As you can see, he dies to Skull Clamp and he gets us a big scary guy. Next we go through some of the utility creatures that we run. I've got Phantasmal Image and Phyrexian Metamorph for clone effects. And then we've got Fencer Shaper 7th for some to counter some spells if we want, or return something to our opponent's hands. Sometimes I even use this in a complicated Birthing Pot chain, but I'll come to that later as well. We've got Glendra Archmage. We've got Snapcaster Mage to give our spells flashback if we need. We've got Gilded Drake to steal some of our opponent creatures. Next we go through some of the creatures that interact with our graveyard. We've got Eternal Witness. It's quite standard, there's nothing to say about it, it's just a very good card. We've got Karmic Guide, gets us a creature back from our graveyard. And this is where Fencer comes back in with Birthing Pot. Let me get Birthing Pot for a minute. Like this. So let's say you've got a 3 mana creature and you got a shit ton of mana available. What you can do is sacrifice the creature with 3 converted mana cost. You get Fencer, and then you use Fencer to bounce back Birthing Pot, and then you replay Birthing Pot, you sacrifice Fencer to get Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide gets back Fencer, Fencer bounces Birthing Pot again, and then you can sacrifice Karmic Guide to get something scary that costs 6 mana. It's really fun play. Like, this is really helpful, for example, after you someone wiped the board, like everyone has a lot of mana available but no board presence, then from a creature with like 3 converted mana cost, you all of a sudden you have like a big dude. Next in line is Reveler. He's a 4/3 flyer. and he says when he leaves the battlefield, you get to retrieve 2 creatures from your graveyard with power 2 or less. And as you can see here, Karmic Guide has a power of 2, so you can get Karmic Guide back, and then with Karmic Guide you can bring something scary back. Like I said, it is a leaves the battlefield effect, so if you cast Revelar, nothing happens yet, but you can cast it for Evoke for 6, so it will die right away then. Next in line is Body Double. It's also really nice. As it comes into play, it becomes a copy of a creature in your graveyard. And this has some really nice interaction with Revlark as well, because what you can do is, like when Body Double is in your graveyard, and then you play Revlark for its Evoke cost, then you can get back Body Double, and Body Double can become a copy of Revlark. So when Body Double dies, you get to get 2 creatures back. So you get Body Double itself back, it will copy Revlark again, and every time you do this you get another creature back because Revlark gets back 2 creatures. This is really nice if you've got a sacrifice effect somewhere on the field, so you can do this whenever you want. And if you add Karmic Guide to the mix, like this, what you can do is have Body Double enter the battlefield as a Revlark, and then sacrifice Body Double somehow, and then you get back Karmic Guide and something back, and Body Double itself. And then next turn you don't pay the echo cost from Karmic Guide, so go to the graveyard and you can start all over again. Next in line is Saffi. He is really nice just to protect some of our creatures. But he also has a nice synergy with Sun Titan, which is up next. And Sun Titan says, whenever Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return a permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less to the battlefield. As you can see, Saffi is only 2. So if someone attempts to destroy your Sun Titan, you can just sacrifice Saffi and use the ability on Sun Titan. Sun Titan dies, it returns to the battlefield, and then you can get back Saffi again. And if you add Karmic Guide to this mix, what you can do is when someone when you're like in your upkeep, you don't pay the echo cost, and in response you sacrifice Saffi to Karmic Guide. So Karmic Guide dies and comes back, and then you get something scary from your graveyard. And then when Sun Titan attacks, Saffi comes back again, and next turn it starts all over again because you have to pay the echo cost, which you don't. So it dies. You use Saffi to get it back, and then in the attack phase you get Saffi back. Well, it's just really strong because you can get a big creature from your graveyard every turn this way. And if someone were to play a Wrath of God effect, then you just use Saffi on Karmic Guide. Everything will die. Karmic Guide comes back. Karmic Guide gets Sun Titan, and Sun Titan gets Saffi. So if you have these 3 in play, you really have a superior board position most of the time. And it's really hard to get rid of, except by exile effects or something. Next in line is Consecrated Sphinx. There's not much to say here, except there are also some arguments for not running it, and that is because in some metas, some people play a lot of bribery effects or clone effects, and well, in some metas, Sphinx could be used against you. But in my meta, it works really well, so I run it. Next in line is Prime Speaker Zagana. As you can see, he'll draw you a lot of cards most of the time. And when he's in the graveyard, he has a power of 1, so he can be rest of Revlark, and Karmic Guide can get it back as well. Next is Sylvan Primordial. It's a pretty no-brainer, lets you destroy a lot of things, and also ramps a lot. Our next creature is Elvish Visionary. For people that don't know what she does, her full name is Elvish Visionary Grand Cenobite. She's 7 mana, it's a 4/7 vigilance, and she says all other creatures you control get +2/+2, and all creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. So this is both a really nice power boost to your own creatures, and it could potentially get rid of some annoying utility creatures that our opponents control. And our last creature is Akroma, Angel of Wrath. She's a flying first strike, vigilance, trample, haste with protection from black and red. She's 6/6. And what I really like about this is that she is strong, but she isn't like annoying to other people, other than the fact that she can beat them in the face. But she doesn't have any annoying abilities. It doesn't draw you an insane amount of cards or prevent our opponents from doing stuff. So even though she's good, she is not like really high profile, like, oh, we have to kill that player ASAP or something. So yeah, that's why I like Chroma so much. Next we go through the 2 planeswalkers that we have. We've got Fencer, the Sojourner. Most of the time we use his +2 ability that says exile a permanent you own and return it to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. And what's really important to note is that it says target permanent you own. It doesn't say control, but target permanent you own. That means that if you used Gilded Drake earlier in the game, that you can flicker Gilded Drake that is currently controlled by someone else, and then at the beginning of the next end step it comes back under my control, so I can use it to steal something else again, and then next turn I could do it again if I want to. But I just want to explain like very clearly that it says target permanent you own, and you get to put it on the battlefield at the end of turn. His -1 ability isn't really relevant. It says creatures you control are unblockable, but I don't think I've ever used that at all. His -8 ability is really strong. You're unlikely to gonna use that in a game because Fencer will most likely die before then. But if you can pull it off, he says basically you get an emblem that says whenever you cast a spell you may exile target permanent. When you've got that emblem you basically won the game, because every time you cast something you just exile something. And our next planeswalker is Tezzeret. Tezzeret is pretty much only here for the -X ability. Most of the time he just gets Birthing Pot. It costs 4, so Tezzeret will die right away if you do that. So most of the time it's just a 5 mana Birthing Pot. Sometimes it gets a sword or Skull Clamp, but other than that it's mainly for Birthing Pot and Skull Clamp. Next we've got the enchantments in the deck. We've got Survival of the Fittest. It's a really dangerous enchantment. If you manage to resolve it and untap with it, like you've got all your mana available again, then you will most likely win the game, because you can just play anything you want, if you've got the mana of course, but it's just really sick. There's one combo I'd like to show you with Survival. If you remember the combo that I showed you earlier with Saffi, Karmic Guide and Sun Titan, in case you forgot, Karmic Guide will trigger its echo, and in response you sacrifice Saffi to Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide will come back and get something scary, and then in your combat phase Sun Titan will get Saffi back. If you add survival to this mix, then in response to the echo you can discard a creature and then get something scary like Sylvan Primordial, and then you discard that again, and then Karmic Guide can get back whatever you just dumped in the graveyard. So you can get anything into play this way with spending just little mana. Next enchantment is Sylvan Library. It's just additional card draw. It's also worth noting that Sylvan Library works really nice with Oracle of Mul Daya. Let me find him really quick. He said that you can play with the top of your library revealed and play a land from the top of your library. So what you can do with that is that you can stack the top 3 cards of your library in such a way that you draw a card you want, and then make sure that the top card is a land. So that way you can just stack the top 3 cards of your library for Oracle of Mul Daya. Next we've got some tutors. We've got Eladamri's Call. It's just a really nice all-round tutor. Gets us any creature we want at instant speed, and it puts it into our hand. Next we've got Chord of Calling. It's also instant speed. That is really nice, and what's interesting about this is that it is Convoke and it puts the creature into play. This can make for some really nice surprises, because let's say your mana is all tapped out but you've got a bunch of creatures, then people don't usually suspect that you're gonna cast Chord of Calling, but you can, and that can really catch people off guard. And what's interesting as well is that some creatures that we run are very powerful but don't have a high converted mana cost. For example, Gilded Drake, he only costs 2, so with Chord of Calling it's 5 at instant speed, and this can really surprise people as well. It's just really fun to steal stuff at instant speed. Next we've got Natural Order. Our primary targets for this are Sylvan Primordial to kill stuff and get lands into play. Prime Speaker Zagana is also a common target for card draw. Oracle of Mul Daya is really nice, especially at the beginning of the game when you're still building up board presence. And sometimes it gets an Eternal Witness as well. Next tutor is Green Sun Zenith. It's just an all-round tutor. It isn't really like overpowered, it's just really nice. Some of our non-creature tutors are Mystical Tutor. Unfortunately I don't have an English version, but he basically says search your library for an instant or sorcery card and put it on top of your library for 1 mana at instant speed, so it's really nice. Next we've got Steel Shaper's Gift. At the beginning of the game this usually gets Skull Clamp, just to make sure I draw my cards and don't miss any land drops. Later in the game, when I need some firing power, it can get either of the 2 swords. Our next card is Bribery. It's just really good, depending on your meta. You can steal other people's Consecrated Sphinx, Sylvan Primordials, or anything else that's big and scary. Next we've got some of our spot removal. We've got Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. What I like about exile effects is that people can't abuse it anymore from the graveyard, and also ignores the indestructible effect of some creatures. We've got Beast Within. Destroys any permanent. It's really nice, not just creatures, even can get lands. On the offside, they do get a beast token, but that's usually not really relevant in a multiplayer commander game. We've got Bench Arm. Most of the time it uses the mode put target creature on the bottom of its owner's library. It's really nice to use on commanders of people that really rely heavily on their commander. It just can kill like their entire game. Some people might not really like it. It's like if you're playing with friends and you want to have a fun game, then it might not be the smartest move to make. But it's still a really strong spell. Destroying a target effect is also really relevant sometimes, and occasionally it can counter a spell as well. Next, for some monster removal, we've got Austere Command. It's just really versatile. Make sure that our opponent gets hit the worst and we get hit the least. And we've got Terminus. I used to use Hallowed Burial. It's basically the same. It also says put all the creatures on the bottom of their owner's library. But Hallowed Burial doesn't have the Miracle. And the Miracle is really nice with Mystical Tutor. Unfortunately, Terminus costs 6 and Hallowed Burial only 5. I'm still playtesting Terminus, but so far I'm liking it. Next we've got some counters. We've got 2, not so many, because I don't want to be that guy that counters everything, and also in commander games countering spells is card disadvantage, especially if you're playing with a lot of people. So I use a counter mainly to protect my own game plan rather than countering other people's stuff. So they're mainly here for protection. Which is why I run Pact of Negation, because it can be free, like when you need it. And I also run Hinder, for the same reason that Band Charm is so nice. You can put the spell on the bottom of their library. Some of our utility spells, we've got Faction Friction for some card draw. We've got Time Warp. This deck is really nice with Time Warp effects because it can do just so much in a turn, and what is better than taking 1 turn? Exactly, 2 turns. There is also an infinite combo that you can pull off with this. Let me find the cards that are needed. Okay, so let's say you've used Time Warp. Then you can use Eternal Witness to get it back, and if you've got some way to kill your Eternal Witness, for example a Skull Clamp, you can then get it back with Sun Titan, because Eternal Witness is converted mana cost 3, so that way you can get infinite turns. I also have a sack effect in my lands, but I'll come to that later. But currently there's 2 ways to getting rid of Eternal Witness. This is Skull Clamp and the land I just talked about. Our next spell is... oh, that's it for the spells. Next we've got our lands. We've got Alchemist Refugee, simply because of the fact that casting spells at instant speed is just really strong. Next we've got Academy Ruins. I believe I mentioned it a couple of times before. It just works really nice with some of our artifacts like Duplicant, or if someone destroyed our Skull Clamp, we can just get it back. Next we've got High Market. That's the sacrifice effect I was talking about. High Market works really well with Revlark to kill it whenever you want. It also works with Eternal Witness combo I just talked about with Time Warp, and also with the combo with Body Double and Revlark that I mentioned earlier, to sacrifice it whenever you want to. But also has another use. Let's say you've got something on a board and someone wants to exile it and you don't want it to be exiled, then in response you can sacrifice that creature so it ends up in the graveyard instead of the exile zone. Next we've got Tectonic Edge. Strip Mine would obviously be better, and Wasteland as well. Except I don't have those cards, so I'm using Tectonic Edge instead. For the colored mana, I've got Command Tower. It's just a no-brainer. I'm running the Shocklands as well. Breeding Pool, Temple Garden, and Hallowed Fountain. I'm running some fetches as well. Unfortunately, not all of them, because I don't have the money to afford them right now. But I'm using the three fetches that fall into our colors. Misty Rainforest, Flooded Strand, and Windswept Heath. And then, in addition to those three, I run Marsh Flats and Verdant Catacombs, and I believe there's another one. Yes, Wooded Foothills, I believe it's called in English. Then we've got our I don't know what these are called. Some people call them check lands because they check other lands for a certain type, or they're called. I don't know actually what they're called. Maybe like Innistrad lands or something. Anyways, I've got all three of them. Sunfellow Grove, Glacial Fortress, and Hinterland Arbor. Then we've got some Pain lands. These aren't really optimal, but for the time being they'll do until I get more fetches or the original dual lands. Again, I'm running all three of them. Next we've got our filter lands. Those are really nice. Yeah, just fixing colors when you need to. All three of them: Mystic Gate, Wooded Bastion, and Flooded Grove. And then we go to our basics. As you can see, my basic lands look a little bit different than usual. I don't feel like going really into depth on how I made these. It's just basic foil lands, and then I use acetone and a piece of cloth to get rid of the image, except for the image for the mana symbol. I believe I use 5 forests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, and then I believe it's 5 islands as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Oh, 5. And then finally we've got 4 planes as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thanks for watching CMDR. Please subscribe and favorite.